Sometimes truth doesn't die, it simply falls silent. In the mountains where the wind never forgets its name, among ruins draped in moss and secrets, there are words that were never written, only whispered. A lost prayer, hidden, not out, of malice, but from fear of its power, passed down not through parchment but through dreams and echoes. Humanity forgot it, but the soul did not. It is said this prayer emerged before time itself, before men named gods, before beliefs became walls. It was not a call to the heavens, but to the unseen that lives within us. Not an invocation to ask for something, but to remember that the divine is not distant, it is silent within the forgotten. Across centuries, this prayer was buried beneath the rituals of the world, erased by dogma, transformed by tongues that lost the breath of origin. But it never vanished. It slept in simple gestures, like the closing of eyes in the face of pain, or the silence that follows a loss. Today, haste, noise, and emptiness push souls away from themselves. Most have forgotten how to listen. But there are those, perhaps you, who feel a formless calling, a longing for something never lived, yet beating like an ancient drum in the chest. That is not imagination. It is the prayer returning, awakening. Tonight, before you sleep, sit in complete silence for 7 minutes. Ask for nothing. Think of nothing. Just listen. Listen to the sound that rises in the space between your thoughts. That's where the prayer begins. Imagine a smooth, dark stone, common forgotten on the floor of an abandoned temple. Inside it, a light that never goes out. That light is the prayer, and the temple is you. But the awakening of the prayer cannot be rushed. There are still veils to lift, layers of forgetting to pass through. The heart is not an organ, it is a temple sealed by ancient pain. Long before we learned to speak, we knew how to listen, not with our ears, but with the center of the chest, that ancient dwelling where heaven and earth meet in silence. Each heartbeat was a sacred drum, syncing the soul with the breath of the world. But over time, we forgot. The heart became covered by layers of unhealed wounds, broken promises, modern urgency, and the ongoing betrayal of one's own presence. It became a place of noise, not the world's noise, but the noise of the mind, always whispering what we fear, what we lack, what we must become. And the echo of the prayer grew faint, like the sound of a bell underwater. Yet this hidden prayer, the one that sleeps in stone and breathes in silence, never stopped singing inside the inner chambers of the heart. It's a song without words, a call without sound. It doesn't say go, but softly whispers, return. Return to center, return to the place before fear, return to the listening that needs no explanation. When the heart becomes a sacred space once more, even suffering changes its face. It is no longer punishment, it becomes passage, no longer a weight, but a portal. Suffering is often the final, a guardian of the prayer, the one who tests if you're ready to cross your inner thresholds, unmasked. Place your hand over your chest and close your eyes. Breathe slowly for 9 full cycles. With each exhale, say inwardly, I am here. Do this until something within you responds, not with words, but with presence. Now visualize an ancient door, carved with forgotten symbols, at the center of your chest. It doesn't open with force, but with surrender. Every time you silence the world to hear your inner self, one latch comes undone, but there is still something keeping the prayer from fully returning. An invisible enemy, wearing the face of control. What you try hardest to control is what you most fear to lose. In the sanctuary of being, between the longing for freedom and the anguish of the unknown, dwells an invisible guardian, the fear of letting go. It doesn't appear as a monster or a shadow, but as a sweet, reasonable voice that says, it's not time yet. You can't afford to fail. Better stay in control. But the ancient prayer, the one rising again from silence, doesn't come from control. It blossoms in surrender, and that is why fear has become its greatest prison. Because letting go is not just about releasing what hurts. It's also about giving up the illusion of safety. Letting go is a kind of death. And the ego, so used to building walls, fears that death as if it were the end of everything. How many times have you felt the prayer drawing near in moments of pain, beauty, or deep silence, and instinctively tried to understand, explain, or hold on to it? But the prayer cannot be captured. It's like wind through your fingers. The more you try to grasp it, the more it slips away. It takes courage not to know. Courage to walk with your inner eyes open, even when the world demands certainty. The hidden prayer doesn't seek answers. It seeks space. Space within you. Space within your fear. Space where control can fall away and something deeper can breathe. Find an object you cherish, a book, a piece of jewelry, a keepsake. Hold it in your hands and silently say, "I can live without this." Then place it somewhere else, as a symbolic act of release. The prayer begins where attachment ends. Now, imagine a golden thread stretching from your chest to the sky, taut and tense. Each attempt to control makes it tighter, nearly ready to snap, but when you let go, it turns into light. It is along this thread that the prayer returns. But even letting go requires something older, something the modern world fears: deep silence, the kind of silence that confronts, the silence where there's nowhere left to hide. Silence is not absence, it is formless presence. At the center of the soul lies a sacred desert, not the desert of loneliness, but of origin. There the hidden prayer waits, not as a sound, but as a space. In that place, everything you call I dissolves, and what remains has no name, no history, no desire. Most people fear this emptiness because it holds no mirrors. There is no one to confirm your importance, your pain, your beliefs. Only silence, and because it is full, the mind perceives it as empty. But it is in that space that the prayer becomes presence. In the modern world, silence has been exiled. Every moment is filled with stimulation, with noise, with the constant need to be occupied, as if nothingness were a threat. But nothingness is a womb. Deep silence is not the absence of life. It is the soil where the divine plants its roots. When you step into this silence, something is revealed. The prayer doesn't need to be spoken. It is heard. It doesn't come from you. It comes through you. And in that moment, everything changes, because you are no longer praying. You are being prayed. Sit in a dark room, far from external sounds. Light a single candle. Gaze at the flame without searching for anything. When thoughts arise, gently say to yourself, "I allow." Allow everything until the silence begins to breathe with you. See in your mind an ancient cave where a flame burns without ever being consumed. Each time you enter silence, you take one step closer to that flame. There, the prayer is already lit, just waiting for you to approach. But one veil still remains, the densest of them all, the belief that we are separate from what we seek. An illusion cultivated over centuries, reinforced by dogma, guilt, and fear. You were never far away, only distracted. For millennia, we were taught to look upward when seeking the divine, to project it into the skies, into temples, into sacred books and distant figures, as if God were somewhere else, separate, almost unreachable. And thus was born humanity's greatest forgetting. The belief that we must cross worlds to reach what has always lived within. This was the final curtain, the most subtle, the most convincing. It does not impose itself with force, but with reverence. It makes us kneel, but keeps us from entering. It makes us search, but never find, because as long as we believe the divine is far away, we will keep shaping our lives around an absence instead of living from a presence. But the Ancient prayer, the one now awakening among the ruins of forgetting, does not call for an external God. It calls for remembrance. It whispers, "You are the home, not the visitor." And in that moment, everything changes. The ground beneath your feet is no longer ground. It is altar. Breathing is no longer mechanical. It becomes prayer. And you were never separate, never. Separation was a dream, a long dream, perhaps even necessary, but still a dream. Awakening begins when you stop searching for God as a destination and begin to feel Him as origin. He is not in front of you. He is behind your eyes. Every morning, upon waking, place both hands over your heart and silently say, "Today, I return inward." Repeat it 3 times. Then take a deep breath and look at the world as if everything were sacred, because it is. Imagine a still, deep mirror of water. When you gaze at it in agitation, everything distorts, but when you become still, you see your true face. And in that face, there is no separation, only return, only return. Now that you're beginning to remember, the prayer no longer needs to be learned. It needs to be lived, but there is still one final crossing, the deepest one, the darkest, the one no one wishes to take, and yet all must. Not all darkness is punishment. Some are wombs. There is a place where even the most fervent silence feels empty, where presence hides and the soul walks alone, even in a crowd. This is the valley of shadow, not the hell of religion, but the desert where all true faith is. Tested, here the prayer has no words, not because you don't want to speak it, but because you simply can't. Your chest feels sealed. The world loses its color. Movements become mechanical. You continue, but you don't live. And in this state, many give up. They mistake the silence for abandonment, but the valley is not the absence of God. It is the field where He hides, so that you may find Him without crutches. It is here that the ancient prayer reveals its strength, because it wasn't made for days of light, but for starless nights. It is not a plea, it is a thread you hold on to as everything falls apart, a thread that promises no answers but offers guidance, a thread that says, without words, keep going, even if you don't know why. In this valley, suffering is not punishment, it is initiation. Every soul that longs to awaken must pass through it, and the more you try to escape, the more you lose your way. But if you stay, if you allow yourself to be stripped down, something happens. Pain stops being just pain. It becomes a fire. It burns everything false until only the essential remains. In moments of pain or disorientation, sit in silence and say inwardly, "I don't understand, but I remain." Repeat it like a mantra. Remain, even when your mind begs for escape. Remain until the pain becomes a path. Visualize yourself walking through a dark field, blindfolded. You cannot see, cannot hear, don't know where you are, but in your hand there is a golden thread, fragile, yet firm. That thread is the prayer. Don't try to understand, just hold it and walk. But there is still a darker secret, a veil no one wants to face, because even after crossing the valley, many return to the prison, the cruelest prison of all, the desire to fall asleep again. The greatest prison is the comfort of the known. You have crossed the silence, the desert, the shadow. You've felt the thread of the ancient prayer tremble in the depths of your being, and now, standing before you, a mirror. Not an ordinary mirror, but one that reflects not your face, but your choice. It doesn't show the past nor the future. It reveals only a seed, your willingness to stay awake. This is the point where most fall, because awakening, though beautiful, is unbearable for those still clinging to control. To awaken is to die, not in body, but in the identities you've carefully constructed. The prayer cannot blossom where the ego insists on reigning, and so the most tragic thing happens, a return to illusion. Not out of malice, but out of habit. The mind says, it was just a phase. Now go back to your routine. The heart hesitates, but obeys. The soul, for a while, goes silent, and the thread of the prayer drifts back to sleep, as it has for centuries, but something within you will never be the same. Because it saw, because it felt, because it came too close to truth, to ever forget it completely. Before sleep, sit before a mirror in total darkness, with a candle lit behind you. Look into your own eyes and ask in silence, what within me still resists awakening? Allow the answer to come, or let the silence reveal it. Now imagine a circle of stones in the heart of a forgotten forest. At the center, a single candle burns. You may step across and enter, or watch from a distance and walk away. The fire forces no one to approach, but it does not go out, and now the final tension remains. You meditate, but still run from yourself. You seek peace, but still feed the noise that steals it. You say you want to awaken, but refuse to die in what must die. How many more cycles will you repeat before you choose a different path? You are still here, because something within you still wants to wake up, choose a new path, or continue feeding the same noise.